Hey, everybody. Welcome and thanks for joining us on another Mr. Cashflow Live. It's been a few weeks since we were on, and I apologize for last week. I had some terrible technical difficulties. My internet kept dropping out, and just as we were going live, all of a sudden my internet went gone, and I left poor James all by himself online, kind of saying, "Are we on? Is Dave there?" So we got rid of that, and we decided that we would reschedule for this week. He's a trooper. I'm glad he's back with me. Welcome to Mr. Cashflow Live. Happy Wednesday. These weekly broadcasts are designed to help you increase your business or practice's cash flow and introduce you to some great people and some subject matters that can be of help to you. And today we've got a good one for you. The recorded version of this live stream is available on I just messed that up, didn't I? It's available on our YouTube channel. If you go to the YouTube channel, you can subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you will be notified whenever we go live on YouTube, Facebook, wherever else we go live. Feel free to ask questions as we go along. If you're watching the recorded version of this, we'll get those answers back to you as quickly as we can by email, but we'll be watching the comments as we go along to take some questions, either for me or for James. Today, we're talking about credit card processing, and you might be thinking, well, that's not a very exciting topic. But stick with us, because the information that we're going to be sharing today could have a significant impact on your cash flow and your frustration level. Lots of salespeople out there tout the lowest prices and the greatest deals on credit card processing, but how do you actually know if you're getting the best price and service available? My guest today is James Estes, the president of Payment Pros. I've worked with a lot of people in this industry, but I don't know anybody that I trust more with the information than James. I think what he has to say will be very, very valuable to you. So, James, welcome to Mr. Cashflow Live with your tie and everything. You look all official.
I was at a networking event before this, so I appreciate you. Thanks for the kind words. Definitely.
Well, you don't have to dress up for us, you know. But hey, I understand. You know,
that's right.
You and I have known each other for a very long time. Let's let our viewers get to know you a little bit better. So just give me a synopsis. Where are you originally from? How did you get to where you are today, the president of Payment Pros?
That's a long, windy road.
Give me the Reader's Digest
version. I was born and raised in Jacksonville, Florida. I actually moved to the Atlanta area just after the blizzard of 1993. Finished high school here, went to the Marine Corps. Then they sent me back here to the Naval Air Station, Atlanta, on the backside of Dobbins, and I've been here ever since. My background's a little diverse and unorthodox. I was an operations manager for an import and distribution company for years. Walked away from that, fell into malpractice insurance consulting with one of the largest carriers here in the state. Worked for them, left that, and then fell into merchant services right at 8 years ago, almost right about now, 8 years ago. Wow. So July 1, we're starting year 9. And it's been a fantastic ride. My wife and I started this. She thought I was a crazy individual. Our very first check after 2 months of working was like $82.32. Woohoo! And we didn't know what we were going to do. So, but lo and behold, we kept at it, kept going, kept talking to every single physician and administrator that I'd known for years. And if we could save you money, would you work with me? It was that innocent at the time.
And that tends to work because people like to save money.
It is. And then I've gotten sharper on integration, on how things work, how the workflow of credit cards going through a medical or dental practice. Getting the patients to pay you without talking to them is a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. Now, you specialize in medical and dental practices, but what we're going to talk about basically applies to any kind of a business, anybody who accepts payment by credit card, right?
It does. It does. Our portfolio is mostly dental and healthcare, but we do have some health insurance companies. We actually have a town in Connecticut. So if you get a speeding ticket in this town, you're paying through our platform. So merchant services is wide ranging. just because you're a different specialty. It's all about the rates at that point.
Sure.
Healthcare and dental are some of the lowest in the nation. It's a very low risk industries. So they have the best pricing already. Only thing that beats them is really grocery stores.
Really? Okay. Well, you know, most of us who are in business get pitched over and over and over. It seems like everybody and their brother is in merchant services, you know.
Or had an uncle.
Tell me, tell me what are the common red flags that, as far as fees or as far as contract terms, that business people need to watch out for when somebody comes to pitch them on changing their credit card processing?
Yeah, the biggest one is always about the contract and the term. So if somebody has a contract, it's okay to have a contract. You know, if its contract is whatever, you just need to make sure there's no early termination penalties. That's where they can really catch you, especially if your business has multiple locations or multiple merchant accounts for whatever reason. Some of those cancellation fees can be $1,500 up to $1,500 each. Most range in the $500 to $750 range.
Wow.
For just to cancel early because the company didn't do their job. So it can really kind of it can bite you a little bit, especially if you have to purchase equipment at the beginning. Or another one that I see a lot is these companies offering free equipment. And we'll tell you, in merchant services, if it's free, there's something dragged along behind it every time. You don't get anything for free in this business. It's
so
always
is that usually higher rates?
It could be a number of things. So not at the beginning. So they can do teaser rates. Most processors have the ability to raise your rates up to 2 times per year. Normally they'll raise them so small, just fractions of pennies. But over time, if they catch you on, 3, 4, 5, 6 rate increases of 0.05%, well, all of a sudden you're now paying 0.25% higher than you were when you first wrote your contract.
It's like that. I don't know if you ever read the book, The Frog in the Kettle, or the story, The Frog in the Kettle, about how if you take a frog and you put him in boiling hot water, he'll jump right out. But if you take a frog and you put him in lukewarm water and gradually heat it up, he'll stay in there until he dies. Most people don't look at their credit card processing statement, in my experience, and they don't know that they're constantly seeing their rates go up and up and up and up, and to the point where I've talked to some people in some practices who are paying just crazy rates for their credit card processing. And we've talked about that, but
That's right.
nobody wants to overpay for anything, especially their credit card processing. So what's the best way for the viewers to save their practice or business money with merchant services?
So the first thing to do is, without even looking and talking to any other processors or companies, take the dollar amount that they bill you every month and divide it by the number of dollars that you processed. That will give you what's called an effective rate. Your effective rate for a healthcare or dental practice, if you're taking most of your payments physically, so where you're inserting the chip or swipe, 75% of your transactions are coming through that way, your effective rate should be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 2.2% to 2.75%. Every single month. Does not matter what all your fees are, all that stuff that you can't understand that's inside of the merchant statement. Now, on the flip side, if you have like all online payments, or you hand key every single transaction every month, your effective rate is going to be somewhere between 3.75%. It's always higher if you're hand keying versus electronically capturing. Most practices, you should net out somewhere around 2.5% though. 2.5, 2.75, sometimes 2.9, but always under 3. If you're over 3, you should start looking at somebody else.
Okay.
And from there, once you start looking at somebody else, there's different types of ways that rates are done. You have some people will see flat rates, where the company charges a flat rate for if the card was electronically captured or if it was hand keyed. Flat rate's always higher, but it's easier to understand. I know that I'm going to pay 3% every time I do this. I know I'm going to pay 3.5 for this. But what it's not accounting for is that when you take a debit card, most debit cards are going to clear at 0.05%. But now you just paid 3% for it. So that's all profit to to the processors.
I think
That
I'd rather
profit,
save money and not totally understand it than than
that's
understand
right.
it fully and pay more.
Exactly. So it's, I remember, again, I didn't come in, I fell into merchant services, so I had to learn it from the ground up. I remember when it dawned on me, like, whoa, hold on. That's how they're making extra money. What you want to really look at is, don't worry about all the different pricing models. You want to look at if you talk to any processor, you want interchange plus pricing. That is it. It's called interchange plus or cost plus. It has two names, and it's meant to confuse you. Okay. But cost, so there's a cost to every single credit card in the nation. Then the plus side is the margin, the markup that the processor's charging to be your processor. That way, at least then you can keep them honest. So with a flat rate, the cost, the plus side of it could be, they could make a profit margin of 1.25%. But if you do cost plus and say the plus rate is 0.25%, no matter what card comes in, you're always paying 0.25% more than whatever the cost was.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
It's no different than buying shoes and lumber, or not lumber. Let's not use lumber right now. It's too high. But like any product that you buy, it has a cost for manufacturing it. And then you have a retailer's markup. Merchant services is no different. There's a cost to every card. The banks that issue the credit cards issue a rate that they expect to be paid back for when those cards are presented in your practice.
And they charge that to the processor, basically, and then the processor has to take their markup. Is that the way that it works?
Well, it's a pass through at that point. So that money, no matter what. So if it's $100 transaction and the cost is 1.5%, that 1.5 is paid directly to the bank that issued that credit card. But then the plus rate, the 0.25, that goes back to the processor.
Gotcha. And if you've got questions, please go ahead and type them into the question box. We'll try and answer them while we're online here so we can get it answered for you right away. If you have any questions for James or any questions for me, please feel free to just enter those in. You can always shoot us questions later from the recorded version of this. You know, James, we talked about it. Many of my clients are medical and dental practices too. That's the large part of my work with cash flow strategies. Should they be sticking with processors that only integrate with their software? Because I hear that a lot. You know, some of the software has processors that have got them pretty well locked down because they have to use that if they want to integrate. What do you think about that?
So you got to look at it from every practice is so different. Every dental practice, they could be 2 miles apart, but they operate totally different, have the same volume, but operate totally different. What I typically consult with people about is that, does the integration save you money? Does it save you time? Does it save your staff time from auto posting with the auto posting feature? All right. So if it does, you need an integrated feature. Now, does the cost also outweigh that as well? So the cost, you and I looked at a practice a long time ago, and I want to say they were only running about 300 transactions a month, but they were paying $25,000 extra in fees versus what we proposed to them. And it's shocking when you look at that. And it happens all the time. I just had a large practice up in Chicago, same exact thing. And they were flabbergasted. And so the physicians, especially the doctors, when they see it, they're like, wait a second, I'm paying how much?
Yeah. The notorious one in the dental world is Dentrix.
Correct.
Because they've always had one processor, and almost every Dentrix practice that I talk to says, oh no, I have to use them because they're the only ones that integrate with my Dentrix. And a couple of times I've said, well, have you thought about not integrating with your Dentrix and what that would cost in time? Well, maybe let's talk about it. They don't even think about it until you bring it up to them that there is another way you can do it. And it's a lot cheaper.
It's a whole lot cheaper. In most
cases that I've looked at, it's a whole lot cheaper.
Well, if you think about technology in its whole, if it saves you time, it's probably going to cost a little bit more. Yep. But time is money, so you got to look at it that way too. Now, what I will say, so that's an embedded integrated processor. So that's the terminology here. So with Dentrix uses, I forget who it is, but they're embedded inside.
Changed a few times.
Yeah, so they have code that's written into the Dentrix platform. Now, and there's a lot of companies that are coming up that you're going to see a lot of AI and robotics platforms where they will actually a robot sit as a third-party biller. So you create a user in Dentrix, and it will auto post that for you without you having to use the embedded integrated processor.
That's
we've
great.
been rolling out. It's a company we have an integration with. And I can share that after the fact. I'm not sure. I got to make sure that they're okay with sharing this. I'm sure they would be, but we got to make sure I cross the T's and dot the I's. But so there are an AI and robotics software, and they can auto post into any EHR or platform.
Really?
It's really cool.
That's exciting.
Just using AI and robotics, machine learning. It's really neat.
It's what's coming.
It's coming. And the reason why is because people are tired of dealing with these embedded processors. Because you're talking about in dental with Dentrix, in healthcare, or EagleSoft, I think is the other one, right? And then in healthcare, there's like ECW, Greenway, and all these other ones where they're tired of being handcuffed to that one processor. And so there are people starting to fill that void. You just have to know where to look for them and who to trust.
Yeah. Well, that's why we have you, because then we know who to trust. You can make sure we don't mess up too bad when we're talking credit cards.
It takes time. I mean, it takes time. You got to do your due diligence.
What would you say are the methods or the avenues to pay that these practices should be offering to their patients?
Again, coming back to what I preach all day long, you should have multiple ways for them to pay. Every one of your patients, they have a different personality. So some want to pay you in person. Some want to pay online without ever calling you. Some will just call you. They refuse to pay you any other way. They want to call. Some are going to mail in their from their statement. They're still going to mail it in, which is crazy to me. And then also time of service. You got to be able to accept them in the office. So that's 5 different ways. Online can have like 2 different ways. If you have a patient portal or just an online payment page where you don't need to log in. So a patient portal requires a login. An online payment page is just it's a forward-facing internet payment page that's normally hosted on the processor servers to collect a payment. So there's 2 ways online.
And that can be integrated into their website, right?
It's not integrated. It's a link. So you just hyperlink to it.
Yeah.
So you have
link to the website. Yeah,
exactly. So you have your pay my bill button. And when you click that, it hyperlinks to the payment page.
Fantastic.
And then when they're done paying, it brings them right back to your homepage.
Well, that works. That's super.
Those are easy.
A question has come up on a lot of times recently, and I think it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on keeping a credit card on file for those practices. Is it something that they should do, or is it too risky to do?
You got to listen to your patient base. I tell a lot of practices, go survey your patients. If we offered a credit card on file, would you utilize it? Would you be happy with it? It's secure. Everything that we're doing is top of the line security, but it allows us to collect whatever payment without you presenting your card. A big one is when a caregiver or a grandparent or an aunt, uncle, somebody brings the children into a dental office. Well, they don't want to pay for the visit right then. Okay. But if the card were already on file, they could just say, hey, grandma, would you like us to go ahead and bill the card on file? She's going to shake her head. Sure. Sounds great. Bill my kids.
So let me ask you this. When we're talking about keeping a credit card on file, I've seen it done a whole bunch of different ways. One way, which you mentioned, is having your processor keep it on file.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen practices that physically keep either a sheet with the credit card number and everything, or a photocopy of it, or in like a shoebox at the office.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Burn all that. Just get rid of it. If you're not, only use the processor and their PCI certified platforms. Any other way, you're out of compliance. You can have huge. I mean, we're talking about $1 million fines if you're keeping credit card numbers in any other sort of fashion.
And they should also get a release signed by the credit card holder, right? That they can keep it on file.
You're already getting every practice has a financial consent form. If you're doing credit card on file.
No, they actually don't. That's why the last year I've been writing patient financial policies and financial programs and things for practices all over the country, because I found out most of them don't have an adequate patient financial policy. I'll review them for free, but so many of them are so far out of compliance, or they're using a 10 or 15-year-old financial policy that they just say, well, we don't have the time to do it. Could you just write one for us?
That's
Well,
right.
yeah, I can. Sure.
And that's why you're Mr. Cashflow. I was actually so the event I was at today had an attorney talking about this stuff. If any of your consent forms are 3 years or older, you need to be updating them.
I say they should be looked at every year.
Correct. But he said if they're 3 years or older, they should all be updated, not looked at. Updated.
Oh yeah, definitely, most definitely.
The world has changed.
It certainly has.
Right. So jumping backwards to the credit card on file. I have a practice in Pittsburgh that does probably the best credit card on file that I've seen. They actually have a full FAQ section on their website that explains why they do it, what the rules are that they have to abide by. One of their rules says that they will bill the credit card on file if it's and you can change this dollar amount. So if it doesn't fit your practice, don't worry that it's too high. Anything under $200 after the insurance pays, or if they're a cash pay, they're going to bill the credit card on file right away, $200 or less. Some practices change that to 50 or 75 or 100, but change that. And then anything over, they're required to contact the patient to set up a payment schedule.
Okay.
So it's all about setting expectations. I think we all do well when we know what's expected of us, your patients included. And this practice has done a very good job with the FAQs. Their consent form is actually online. So once they consent, they can add their card right there. It's really kind of cool.
Oh, that's good. I'd like to take a look at that.
It's nice.
They don't mind if I borrow it, I'm sure.
we built it.
Okay, good.
I'm biased. I love them.
We should work together on that one.
That's right.
Yeah. So, all right. Summon this all up. Besides the fact that you are a literal wealth of information in this whole area, what sets Payment Pros apart from all the 25,000 other credit card processors out there? What makes you so special, Mr. Credit Card?
You know what it is? It's I don't have any quotas. I don't care. If you want to come on board, now's the time. Let's come on. If it's not the time, it will be later, because eventually somebody's going to mess up in this business. It's merchant services. Something's going to happen. What I'm really good at is fixing the things that happen, because I've learned from everybody else's mistakes, and I can help guide others through whatever it is. We're super competitive on rates. Rates are rates. You're going to there's a floor to merchant services. Eventually it stops. And then now what do you get for it? A lot of our add-ins that we provide for people with the online payment pages that we'll build, the virtual terminal, automatic payment plans, account updaters, some integration possibilities depending on what their needs are. It's having the experience of 8 years and almost, I think we're going to be close to $350 million in processing this year. That's big numbers. It's hard for anybody. So if you ever talk to anybody, ask them how long they've been in the business and if they report to other people. If they haven't been in the business very long and they report to somebody else, it's a good chance they're not going to be there very long. Most sales agents are gone within 2 years. It's hard. It's so hard to make money in this business.
It's a hard business because there's so much competition.
It is. Listen, we sold a house. We prayed a bunch. I walked holes in shoes for real. And I mean, I was, by the grace of God, we made it. And we haven't looked back. I mean, we since year 3, we've been good, and again,
I remember running into you in an medical office building out. We were both pounding the pavement.
That's right. And I was like, hey, you look familiar. You the cash flow guy?
That's one of the first few times we met. And what a great relationship it's been since. I consider you a good friend. So fantastic. So let me just ask one more time if there are any other questions, at all for James. If you would like to get in touch with him, you can use this email address. Make sure you tell him that you saw him on Mr. Cashflow Live. Give me a little stroke there. Put some likes in the video and some thumbs up and that sort of thing. And if you've got questions when it comes to credit card processing, this is the guy that you want to talk to. If for some reason you have a question for me, You can always reach me here as well at this email address about anything that has to do with your cash flow. So, James, I want to thank you so very much for being with me last week and taking your solo flight on Mr. Cash Flow Live for a few minutes and then hanging with me for another week. I appreciate it very, very much.
Well, I definitely appreciate you as well. And one last thing before we close this segment is if anybody has, if you ever want to see what the difference in rates are, the email was up there. Shoot me an email. Let me know. We can do a detailed side-by-side analysis. It won't cost you anything except for an email. We don't run you down. We're not going to do anything like that. I mean, it is straight up show you the savings.
You don't get put on a mailing list and get like 5 emails a day. And
I don't have time for mailing lists and email blasts and marketing campaigns. And it's real business with real people every day.
It works for you. Good deal.
It works. That's right. All across the United States. So
Absolutely.
It's been great.
Thanks so much, James.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
If you would like a no-cost cash flow checkup to evaluate other ways that your practice or your business can improve your cash flow, please feel free to give me a call or an email at any time. My services are at no cost. I'm happy to evaluate your practice, your business. I'm happy to evaluate your financial policy and tell you what I think and give you some constructive criticism. And join me right here every week for another episode. Hopefully every week we're online for another episode of Mr. Cash Flow Live. Your bottom line will thank you for it. Until next week, as always, I'm David Weiner, Mr. Cash Flow from Cash Flow Strategies. After all, it's your money. Keep more of it.